This is Visions Under Construction. A chance for our guests to share their visions and tell us what they're working on. This is Visions Under Construction.
We'd like to thank Simwood, straight talking, forward-thinking telecoms. Simwood.com.
Why not make Cloudonics your communication partner? Go to cloudonics.io. You can find everything about the VUC at vuc.me, thanks to Bluehost, and thanks also to zipdx.com, the conference bridge, and to voxphone.com for local rate dial-ins.
Okay, why don't we wait until my face gets a little less red? I had a window open looking at the conference that hadn't started yet, and that's what happens. There was a slight moment of bad mix going on. Speaking of bad mix, no, I'm kidding. Left to right, we have Mr. Andrew Smith. Hello.
Oh, am I supposed to unmute and say hello at this point?
Could.
I could. Hello.
And then next over further right is Mr. Corrado Mela.
All the way to the right. Just
wait a
to
minute.
the right of wherever.
Yeah, all right.
No political position.
You're definitely to the left of Michael Graves.
You know, I don't. Yeah, well, no, I don't imagine so. I'm probably to the left of him, generally speaking, but that's another story.
That's possible. We're missing James Bodie. Is James still at? By the way, Jay is with us. Jay Carpenter. Hope to have him come in, but right now I don't have video from him. And is James traveling, or is it still Astrakhan over there?
No, James is currently in the Hyatt Hotel at Orlando with some clients.
Oh, well, let's hope that materializes. Unlike Google.
You have clients?
Yeah, strange that.
Yeah, you know, like.
Well, that's good to know.
Telnet clients. Anyway, yes, well, you ruined my joke about not materializing. Google Plus, the naysayers are right after 2011, was it 9 years? 7 years only. And there's Jay. I see you, Jay. 7 years in existence, six of which the tech press said that Google Plus was a ghost town. However, what's funny is that there are two alternatives that have been created just at the announcement that they were sunsetting Google Plus, which is scheduled for August. But someone... well, there was already MeWe, which is mewe.com, I think. That's been proposed as an alternative, but someone else created a diaspora instance, a pod called Pluspora, Pluspora.com. It's interesting, and there are, all the regulars that I know have are flowing over there, okay? So it's kind of interesting. I know that most people probably who listen to this, and certainly everybody on the panel, nobody's very active. But there were a lot of people in that. The difference is that there's not, 500 million or 4 billion or whatever it is. It's not Facebook level. There were certainly maybe 1 million people. I don't know what the guess would be. Anyway, interesting. They admitted failure on that. The original reason given had to do with a security breach, which they didn't announce until just now. It happened in March, I think. But a lot of people have conjectured that that actually has nothing to do with anything and wasn't that important. In other news, I was hoping James would be the person who'd be the most enthusiastic, but maybe one of the rest of you have followed with interest Made by Google, which ironically was right around the same time. It was Tuesday, I think. Michael, did you follow that? I'm not getting any audio from you. You must be locally muted, or he's on the phone.
No, I've interacted with Made by Google for the past month because they are the people who support the they are the Google store, basically. They are the people who support the Google products, and I have been going through this issue with my Pixel. And so I watched that. I watched a good part of that presentation. Is that what you're talking about when you say Made by Google?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm kind of upset with them about how they're handling my Pixel, I didn't pay it a whole lot of attention. I like the idea of the new Pixel book. I'm not so I'm not so excited about the Slate thing. I don't have any use for that. Pixel 3 looks interesting, but I'm not going to buy one unless they resolve my current Pixel 1 issue in a satisfactory fashion. So,
what about on the home? This is the stuff that I'm totally not interested in. What about the Google Home, the whatever else they've got, the Amazon competition?
Well, the interesting part about that is not so much the Google Home, because if you're already in, not being Stacey Higginbotham or Kevin Toffel, I'm not going to have one of everything. We're already in the Amazon Echo kind of ecosystem, and we like that. However, I can see some smart things that they did with the Google Home, the new one, the Home Hub. I think there's some good things about it. It doesn't have a camera, which proves that they're not as vile as Facebook, who has that sort of robotic camera thing they call Portal, that they finally unearthed this week. I think Facebook is seriously clueless with respect to that. Or either that or I am. And that is to say, I'm of a certain age that maybe I'm not in the target market. But the idea of some giant sort of all-encapsulated tablet video conference thing that's tied into the Facebook, hello, we own all your data ecosystem. Yeah.
Well, aren't we a little bit jaded anyway with any conference gear that's ever going to come out? I mean, this home stuff, intelligent home and all that is not so much that. But if you're anything that has to do with a conference room piece of hardware, we have seen so much that you can't get excited about it, can you?
This is not a conference room thing, though, right? This is just sort of it's like it's Facebook's version of what I thought the Google or the Amazon show was. It was a thing you gave to grandma so that the grandkids can video chat with grandma just by voice, right? Except that it's all tied into the Facebook friends and lists and all of that kind of thing. So I guess I'm just on the outside of that. I don't appreciate it. We would never buy one. But we don't use our smart speakers as speakers. Like, we don't play music over them because we prefer high fidelity.
But you know about high fidelity. Most people do not these days.
Yeah. Hi-fi.
Apparently.
Good.
Apparently. I do use them. I do use them for listening to podcasts. If Stella's watching TV in one room, I'll listen to a podcast on the Echo in the living room where there is no TV. Well, I don't know. Google's not getting a lot of money from me this week, that's for sure.
But as the guys, both of them were talking about, kind of, I think most people don't really good systems to listen to music on there. Either it's the new version of the boom bops, which you see on the street, these Bluetooth speakers. God, I thought that was the greatest idea in the world when I bought one. Now I wish they never would have been invented, because every Tom, Dick, and Harry and Jane and Rebecca on the street has them. And so you have to listen to a constant medley of mixtapes. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Point is, most people don't listen. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe someone has the percentage of homes that have actually really good fidelity reproducing stereos. I think it's very small.
Most of my children listen to music on their earphones, right, in their own privacy.
Not even earphones, these things.
Yeah. So, and they are even looking at me weird when I'm watching a YouTube video with my speakerphone on.
Right.
On my mobile phone, on my smartphone, and I'm not using headphones or anything.
Well, that's the other thing, is that young people have a tendency of walking around having the volume speakerphone on and talking like this and sharing the conversation with everybody. Anyway.
That's probably because they fear about the microwaves frying their brain, that kind of thing.
Honestly, I don't think that any of them are that thoughtful. Yeah. I don't think that it's that well considered. I just think that that's sort of thoughtlessness on the fly.
It's probably a status symbol because they've seen that done on luxury motor car or something, with the usual high flyer at the back that is speaking in tie and with a white shirt speaking on the phone like that. So that is probably just posing.
I have no. What people don't realize when they're using the speakerphone, I mean, that's the worst case example. But what people don't realize is that it's convenient for you and it sucks for everybody else.
Yeah. It's a bit sociopathic, is it?
Yeah, it is. It's Trumpish.
Selfish. But beyond that, I'm not a fan of connected homes and everything else for reasons that I have already explained. And I just started using the smartphone in my car to text people while I'm driving with the OK Google thing. With the phone on my dashboard. But I've only started doing that when finally they had introduced the assistant in multilingual. So you can, after taking its attention, speak it in different languages.
You mean it has a Scottish version?
It does. It has an Italian, German, English, Scottish, American. There's a few identities you can use.
Anyway, that's great. Speaking of not being a fan of what the intelligent home, as you well know, I'm not. I reposted something when we're thinking about changing the radiators. As it happens in my office here where I'm sitting, there is a brand of radiator that can be connected to your Wi-Fi and you can control it on your phone, which I have zero desire to do. All I want it to do is heat. I don't want it to be on the Wi-Fi, and I don't need an app for that. But just as an aside, Michael, you'll well remember my story with Ring and the Ring 2 video doorbell. This is going to be brief, guys, I know, because we want to move over to Andy. So prepare yourself, Andy, for the Microsoft part. We're going to get to that in a second. Anyway, the battery started dying within a day or two on the Ring, so I reached out to their help thing. They actually sent me a new battery pretty quickly. However, the new battery didn't fix it, so they are sending me a new Ring. I have to return the old one, of course. And I'm like 4 days from the end of the warranty. So I hope that solves that problem, and maybe it'll solve some of the other problems I've had. Anyway, wanted to share that because that's pretty cool. They finally are getting their support together, and I think that's a really good thing. We spoke about...
Danny, do you think they failed to address that properly at the beginning because they had too much success? Or because they didn't care?
No, I don't think either's the case. I think that they tried really hard on their support, and they still have an extremely weird support setup. They have 24/7 phone lines, and I am not somebody who loves to call. I don't like to talk to people on the phone because I know it's going to be the script, unplug it and then turn it back on type thing.
Yeah, first line.
I prefer, saying what I have to say and get back to me. And their support, for some reason, has no visible reference to me of what the problem is. In other words, it's not a who's the people who do all the Zen, whatever that is, right? Who do all the support things?
Zendesk.
Zendesk, yeah. It's not Zendesk and it's not anything similar. It's just you send to help@ring.com. And I don't know how they know which thing you're talking about, because presumably they must have tens of thousands of people talking. Anyway, they did manage it. I'll let you know. I hope to get it within a week or two, and we'll see exactly what happens and whether it's good or not, and so on. But I thought it was interesting that they at least are addressing it and quickly, because I deal with a lot of people, a lot of companies who you have to fight tooth and nail. As a matter of fact, getting back to Google, has anyone ever tried to get Google support? If you're a paid user, you do get it, because we do have G Suite. But on anything that happens to you on YouTube or any of your regular Google stuff, of course, good luck getting anybody unless you know someone. Now,
even if you own a phone from them, and as I do, I'm 5 weeks out having reported a problem, fed back all kinds of data. It took them 4 weeks to actually acknowledge me in some fashion, and only because I was sort of bludgeoning them on Twitter. And now they've come back and they've given me a diagnosis that sounds
your fault.
Improbable.
Improbable. You're not holding it.
Improbable, let's say.
Michael, you saw that they announced that there is actually a website now, or there's some new whole support thing on Pixels, right?
There's a forum, but the forum doesn't have anybody on Google staff. It's all staffed by volunteers.
No, I think I swore I heard something that they are actually, it's for repair, by the way.
Yeah, no, I saw that where you can order repairs and stuff like that. I did see that. I'm not prepared to do that just yet.
Because my wife's OnePlus X, which is way out of warranty, it's like 3 years old. And I'm sure I already said this here, but it was repaired for 30 euros, and it was really fast and efficient. They repaired it. They sent UPS to pick it up. They sent UPS they sent it back via UPS, and that was included in the 30 euros. I was really impressed. That's fantastic. Anyway, that's the Chinese OnePlus. Let's not keep Andy. He looks like he's chomping at the bit. Champing, I think they say, actually. Andy, what do you know about this? The other guys know a little too, so you won't have to go it alone. Unmute and tell us what you're working on.
Didn't realize I was muted. Ah, there we go.
Interesting, if I can, interesting shirt, Andy, with
this?
The Google colors and Apple.
Yes, well, the Apple is actually Apple Conservatories, which is a local business. I got this off them many years ago, but I just thought I'd put it on because it was in the cupboard. There you go.
Great choice.
Yeah. I don't know how many people know how much Microsoft seems to be using Linux as part of its internal infrastructure for things like Office 365 and others. It doesn't all run on Windows servers anymore. And indeed, some people we know, Bob Bowles has been working for Microsoft on Linux for some considerable while. But one of the problems that Linux has, of course, is the potential that intellectual property rights could be asserted, hence causing everybody lots of problems and everybody having to cough up money to some random person for intellectual property and patents. So it's very important and something that I found very strange that Microsoft has joined the Open Invention Network. Now, the Open Invention Network is a repository of patents, basically. So they've effectively open sourced or acknowledged that they will not enforce any of their patents, and they've handed over 60,000 patents to the Open Invention Network, and so Microsoft's becoming friendly. It's no longer the big bad wolf. It's now the gentle lamb who's trying to soothe us all through our lives as we use our software products.
Well, that's interesting, and I wonder, if you were a Microsoft shareholder, would you be upset by this?
Oh, I think it's got to be in their interest, isn't it?
I expect so.
I mean, I can't imagine for a moment that they would be doing something like this because they happen to like the idea and they've done it out of the kindness of their hearts. It's not going to happen that way. They clearly don't want to be sued by IBM and Oracle and others because of software patents that are in Linux or used in Linux. And so they've just come to an agreement. It's mutual forgiveness. Everybody can use everything, but it just seems really strange that it's Microsoft that's done it.
They probably have to make up for the brouhaha they caused with the last Windows release. No folder redirection that completely messed up everything for everyone. It's just 0.0001% of the people that applied the 1809 version of Windows, the upgrade to the new version. Yeah, it's about close to 500,000 people.
Yeah,
lost completely everything: documents, pictures, music, and a bug that was reported by the inside preview track users, but has been completely dismissed or even not tracked because apparently the feedback hub didn't have, and now it does, any way to set the importance or the relevance or the gravity of what you report on the feedback hub. Now it has. So if your computer is destroyed in a implosion, you can feedback, well, that went well.
I can sort of understand the lack of such an importance marker, though. I mean, what's important to one person is completely irrelevant to another, and
it's subject to abuse.
Yeah, it is. It is very subjective in terms of the technical ability of the users. But you'd hope that the people that are on the Insider program actually might have a bit of nous of what they're doing.
Yeah, well, you can join just clicking a couple of things and accepting that Microsoft is snooping on your system forever and ever. But there's no requirement for you to demonstrate any technical ability to join the Insider program.
And of course, they're just collecting anonymized data, and they can't connect it back to you in any way, shape, or form.
No. That in fact, if you try to join the Insider program, it specifically said that they are collecting personal data.
Right. So they do actually
of your machine specifically.
Okay.
And tracking it.
Well, there are other ways of doing it and collecting it and connecting it to one person or at least one place anyway.
Yeah, we know. But
indeed.
It's one side of the scales. On one plate, we are giving you 60,000 patents. We're releasing them. Sorry, we made a brouhaha. We destroyed 500,000 people's documents.
Okay, different market, I suspect.
Yeah.
Now, on the other hand, and let's be fair, if somebody did that, say with a particular Linux distro, how many people would be affected?
10.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, 10 people, but about half the multiverse of servers.
Yeah,
exactly.
But it doesn't happen. Linux has been running and going and getting updates and upgrades every 6 months, especially on the Ubuntu, Kubuntu, and that stuff, with long-term releases every 2 years. They've been thoroughly checked and debugged, and massive deletion of user data so far from my memory in about 5-6 years has not happened.
Nope. No, I agree. I've never seen it. And each new version just seems to work.
There's a lot of... I'm sorry, go ahead.
No.
Well, I was just going to say there's a lot of talk because of this, because of the, federation, the idea of federation. There's a lot of talk about one entity having the power, and we've spoken of. Actually, we didn't speak about Amazon yet, but we were talking about Google. We were talking about Microsoft, and Facebook was mentioned. These are all run by one central entity, and even though they have humongous networks, all of them, it's still down to a board of directors and whatever else you want, a CEO. There's lots of stockholders, and you have to answer to them and so on. But in the case of Linux, it's funny too. There are I don't know if you could help describe this, Corrado. I know the idea that there are several types of Linux, or let's say asterisk Nix type. In other words, there's FreeBSD,
there are different. There are a few kernels.
The three main paradigms, though. One is actually has a committee that decides. Go ahead.
Well, there is a Linux kernel or Linux, depending on where you live, how you pronounce it. There's a FreeBSD kernel, and I don't know if probably everybody knows now. The Macintosh operating system, the Mac OS, is a variant of FreeBSD, as far as I am aware. Then on top of that, there are different GUIs that you can use on top of the operating system, so KDE, GNOME, and others. And then you can package together distros, choosing which GUI user interface you want to add on top of the core operating system, and which applications you want to distribute as standard in the distro. The flavor you can choose of each of them is a variation. You can have Linux Mint, Ubuntu, Kubuntu, that is the one with KDE, Xubuntu or Xubuntu, if you want that is with XFCE. So it's quite a complex scenario, but at the bottom of it, the operating system, the kernel, the core is always Linux.
But actually, what I was looking for was the idea that there's, and I can't remember if I've got this right, FreeBSD, which is a committee that decides what's going to go into it. In other words, that's what I meant. Now that doesn't, the kernel is identical everywhere, or no?
Well, depending on the distro, there are different versions of the kernel itself. Andy?
Well, yeah, depending on which distro you're looking at, is the rate of some are much more conservative than others. Debian is way behind the curve in terms of the latest kernels. And if you want the very latest kernels, you go and get the latest issue of Fedora.
Or Arch.
Or Arch.
I thought BSD was different, though. I thought BSD was entirely different kernel, different everything.
They're two different beasts. It's the same concept of a multi-user environment, a multi-level, multi-user environment, where you have different logins on the same machine. Is always the concept of a server. So a server and a client that is running on top. Your GUI is a client running on top of a server.
No,
BSD just rock solid, though. Absolutely, the most stable thing I've ever touched.
But that's my point. Is that
sorry, Randy, to interrupt you. FreeBSD, I think, is underneath a number of well-known router appliances. I think pfSense is running on FreeBSD.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is.
I just have to laugh because I remember somebody asking years ago on the VUC. This was the only person we had to silence. Michael, you were probably there and remember this. This Richard, can't remember his last name.
Oh, yeah. Rich. I remember him.
Rich always attacked every guest saying, and where's the FreeBSD version? Because you couldn't run any Linux versions wouldn't run on FreeBSD. Anyway, my point was for Corrado, the reason I was asking is because some of these things are just projects, they could be on GitHub or whatever. They're run by everybody. There's no real one authority. Well, maybe there is always, but the point is that with either NetBSD, FreeBSD, or some other BSD, there's actually this committee who looks at everything that comes in and says, nah, we don't want that, right? And that's kind of what I meant in the division of these things, is that some of them just accept any help they can get, and others are very discriminating. And I possibly think that what Michael just said, that the ones that are the most stable probably do have actually a group saying, nah, you can't put that in. I don't know.
Yeah, there is a core group in FreeBSD that is dictating what the kernel path is. There's more or less the same structure in Linux, where Linus Torvalds is the Deus ex machina of everything, but he took up a leave of absence recently to reassess a bit his priorities, because he was a bit too dictatorship versed. But again, there are kernel developers meetings, they have a forum and so on. So it's always a collective effort. But I suppose even the Windows kernel is somehow the NT kernel inside underneath Windows. Any version of Windows is.
That's actually a really good question. Is that who has the last say? I mean, think about this for a second. We all very well know Asterisk and FreeSwitch. Thank you, Andy, for that little music.
I'm sorry, my machine's just deciding to sing to me.
We all know very well FreeSwitch and Asterisk, and that there are people in place who make those decisions. One assumes the CTO, but by the way, who is that in Asterisk? Who is it in Digium these days? It's Matt.
Matt Jordan.
No, not Matt. Matt Fredrickson. No.
Matt Fredrickson is the software lead for Asterisk, but Matt Jordan is the overall software guru within Digium.
And we don't know this, and it just doesn't matter if it's exactly right or not, but someone in these companies, and FreeSwitch, same, Tony or whoever, someone has to look over this and go, yeah, let's do that. No, let's not do that. But
strategy, yes, of course.
Yeah, but I mean, getting back to Microsoft, because that's where I was going with this, is that that's a company, and just like Facebook and presumably Google, although who knows if there's actually any logic behind what they do, someone has to look at this and make these decisions. So the Microsoft idea that they're all lovey-dovey with open source, I don't know. There's two opposing viewpoints. One could be that it's just a PR operation, basically, and the "don't be evil" mantle that Michael put on them before we got started here publicly. That there's something to be said for that, or are they all smoking hash and thinking that it's going to be great to be open source now? I don't know. What is it?
Well, they've also open sourced MS-DOS. So
really,
yeah, if you want to, MS-DOS 1.2 and MS-DOS 2, not 3. 3.15 is the one I remember using most. But yeah, 1.2 and 2 are available on GitHub.
So you can build your own version of MS-DOS.
Indeed, you can. Try and get something to run it.
Of course.
Didn't somebody actually already do that? I'm trying to remember. I can't remember who did it, because they use it on Steve Gibson on the GRC. Right, there's a competing version that'll run MS-DOS stuff.
Well, DR-DOS, if I think.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
It was something like that.
PC-DOS. I thought that there was a version of DOS that ran in a browser. It was implemented in JavaScript.
Well, it's easy.
Could be. Anyway, it'd be more interesting to know how this affects all and any of us. Because, okay, the main thing that's going around, what I get on all the social networks and from what I'm reading right now, is that people feel they're not in control. And the more technical people say, okay, that's it. I'm going to start my own diaspora pod or whatever, or write my own software or whatever. And it's going to be, on my server that I control. Ironically, when people say that, it's probably not on their server that they control, if it's AWS or DigitalOcean or whatever, which is great. I mean, that's all wonderful. But suppose you had your whole empire on DigitalOcean and they disappeared tomorrow. I don't expect that Amazon will disappear tomorrow, but AWS could pull the rug out one way or another. Anyway, this is all seems to be kind of a false debate in a way. Hey, you married her, be happy or do something else. To me, that's the OS. Same thing, I'm looking for some help here. Give me some support.
Well, so Randy, this is Jay, and there's a whole new paradigm that's emerging on decentralized file storage, decentralized communications, that's completely open source, where we control our storage, and a new paradigm where we can actually become a AWS or Dropbox or whatever you want. And I see a strong movement in that direction. There was the conference in San Francisco recently, the Decentralized Web Summit, and everything you're talking about, everything we're talking about today regarding these services disappearing was at the heart of the conversation, along with identity in that summit. And so there are people that are working on this issue of how do we move the control to the endpoints, basically, so that the peers control the data, the peers control the rights to the data, and we control our own identities and all that stuff. So there are some movements along those lines. A couple of them are the Interplanetary File System, which we've talked about from time to time, IPFS.io, which is developing Filecoin, which is a cryptocurrency that will allow us to be both providers of storage as well as consumers of decentralized storage. There's also something called DAT, and one of the with the Beaker browser, and I was just at a meetup this week, and one of the developers I know and respect the most has really gotten excited about DAT and was showing some WebRTC peer-to-peer connectivity using DAT that was pretty exciting. So there are some movements in this direction, and I think every time that something like Google Plus shuts down, or Microsoft buys GitHub, or we've got these data breaches, or you name it. And I think the move by Microsoft to open source 60,000 patents is another step in this whole decentralized open source paradigm that's unfolding. So hopefully that's a ray of good news for everybody that's concerned about this.
Yeah, and not only that, I think we are wasting a lot of computational power, electrical power, and disk space not using end user devices. We all buy computers now, new computers that have 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte hard drives, and we barely use 10, 20% of the space if we really are consuming and using a lot of data, and 80% of that space is completely wasted. There's so much potential, and how much computational power and of your own bandwidth, your connectivity, are you effectively using 24/7? There's so much of that power that is completely wasted, could be used in better ways.
Corrado, I respectfully, because I think that you'd find, if you surveyed people, that most people have something like 70 to 80% occupation of their disk. That means these are people who don't manage them properly. But for example, in my case, I know that my SSD, for example, is at least 60 or 70% full. The other disk, the other drive has a lot of videos and stuff on it, and it's a terabyte. It has 300, so it's still 70%. Wait.
No, yeah, Randy, but you are a heavy media user. I'm talking about office machines. By the packet load that are practically unused, because everything is on a server or on the cloud, and there is a terabyte disk sitting under a desk that has barely the operating system 20, 30, 40 gig on it.
That was the very reason that Chris Matthew came up with computes.io, so that you could do sort of ambient computing and edge computing, making use of the resources that you had within an organization. And look, computes.io was bought by Magic Leap, and they had their LeapCon, that was 2 weeks ago, and they had LeapCon this week. And the things they are doing in the assisted reality world are probably great consumers of compute cycles. And so you can see how it would make sense for them to leverage the compute power of devices ambiently available to them.
Do we know what Chris is doing now? Anybody looked?
Well, this week he was at LeapCon. I saw him. He did an unveiling video where he opened his Magic Leap creators package, and then LeapCon was a fairly substantial thing. So presumably they're going to be, computes.io is going to be a foundational resource for Magic Leap going forward.
So he's not starting a new thing that he's going to sell in 2 years?
No, I think he's still with computes.io, but within the new ownership. So I'm interested in that. It looks a little goofy. I'm not a gamer, but I can see AR being profoundly useful in a lot of different ways. Witness some of the earliest industrial AR was what Boeing developed for people working on building airplanes. It was, headgear they could wear so that they could have all of the drawings and resources they needed to build the airplane available to them as they walked around the factory floor. So that's pretty cool stuff.
The trick in all of that is the consensus mechanism, as well as the security constructs around all that. So the decentralized distributed computing is a little harder than it looks. So a lot of people have worked a long time to try to get both decentralized computing, decentralized storage, peer-to-peer constructs, all that stuff. And it's it's a difficult task for sure.
However, if we go through that approach, we need a more resilient, possibly, and a better balanced internet, because most of the internet connectivity, consumer and business, not up to leased lines, is heavily unbalanced, with a lot of download bandwidth and little upload bandwidth. So you can easily discharge your data onto someone, but then to claim it back is a bit of a struggle. So we need, if we go through that paradigm of a computing power and storage distribution, we need balanced connectivity, and not faster. We need probably a 20-20 everywhere instead of an 80-10, as in fiber to the cabinet connections, like in so VDSL connections, like is happening in the UK now. And that has been a battle I've fought with tooth and nail, even with Virgin Media, where they deliver a 350 megabit download speed with 10 megabit upload. If you have a minimum understanding of how TCP/IP works, you can understand that half of the bandwidth of your upload stream will be busy sending just the ACK packets back for the data you are downloading.
And they won't arrive as quickly either.
Yes. With buffer bloat and everything else.
Yeah.
So it's time we get to the grips of the fact that we are having data and computing distributed more widely and more widespread and towards the edge rather than centralized, and we need to reassess how we distribute information through the information highway. Has to be a two-way connectivity with the same level of bandwidth. Otherwise, we are not going anywhere. Randy, are you back?
Yes, I was just contemplating that, remembering that in the very early days, you might be able to negotiate a 100 up, 100 down. What's the name of that already? It's synchronized. There's a word for that where you've got equal up and down.
Symmetric.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a general word that when you get old you forget. It applies to a lot of things. But symmetrical, yeah, up and down. But those were actually, if I remember correctly, the big time offer for that was SDSL. I think it might have been 100, or it might have been 30 even. But the point is, it was the same. The current offers that we have here in France, the highest speed offer possible is 500 down, 200 up, which, by the way, is pretty comfortable, I have to say, especially since the 500 down is actually 920 in my case. They still haven't caught me, so I don't. Hard to say what's happening.
Keep saying that on the VUC. They might be.
I don't think they're watching the VUC.
Right. Okay. Well, there are services available, at least here in the UK, that are using Ethernet, EFM. They're called Ethernet First Mile, or whatever. Final Mile. Okay. Those acronyms are literally mad. That are 20/20, 30/30. But yeah, 30 meg per second. Yeah, one single user might be as an endpoint of a distributed web might be useful, but just about. We need at least 100 symmetric on every endpoint, at least to have something that is productive and is as fast as distributed computing requires. Otherwise,
you know that the biggest user of bandwidth on the internet is
Netflix.
Netflix, yeah.
Yep.
Obviously.
Yeah, but Netflix is just downloading.
Yeah, but if there's all those...
because it's streaming, I think he's streaming in UDP and is not even waiting for an ACK is
okay.
dumping stuff on you. So your upstream is not busy with responding.
Good.
Corrado,
Yes.
you made repairs to your headset this week.
No, I completely changed the headset. It's a professional headset from a mixing desk that has failed. So I've just spliced the end. That was a custom connection, and I rewired it for usage on a PC.
Who makes?
It sounds slightly odd. It sounds a little bit, as you're speaking, there's a high frequency squeak. It sounds to me like a hamster wheel. And
I'm not hearing.
It's only when you're speaking, though, and it's not when any other guys are saying anything.
Okay.
Say something long so we can.
Long.
Count back from 10.
It might be the coil. There is a long coil here. But I don't know. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
I'm not hearing it, but then my hearing on that end maybe is not.
It sounds to me like a hamster wheel.
Well, I'm not hearing it either. But the point really here, regardless of our hearing capability, is that whatever codec we're actually using is carrying it such that Michael can hear it, which in itself is impressive.
But I always had a weird voice from Michael, like if his microphone was in restricted bandwidth, like it was a phone call instead of full bandwidth. I don't hear the voice from Michael as clearly as I hear from Andy, and from Randy.
Well, this direct headset is constrained to an 8 kilohertz passband. So
okay,
but it's not. It's like you're using G722 because that's what it's designed for. If you say we're going to do Opus and we're going to do some slightly higher sampling rate, they might sound slightly brighter, but this shouldn't sound like a phone call. It should only sound slightly muffled compared to full bandwidth Opus.
Okay, it's a wireless headset anyway. Is it? Yeah. Okay. Bluetooth?
No, DECT.
DECT. Okay. Should we discuss quickly what happened with Sangoma that has culled a number of Digium products that were overlapping?
Absolutely.
And they just announced yesterday, I think, they are ending production. They're putting in end of line 3 Digium products that were a little older in engineering than equivalent products that they have. And apparently they are rebadging some other Digium products that are a little younger, newer than some Sangoma products, and dismissing, putting end of line the Sangoma products. So some technical merge is already happening. Do you think that we should expect some merging also in workforce? Because I don't think there is a big overlap between Sangoma and Digium, especially in the software area. They are quite how to say that, interconnected but not overlapping.
Yeah, that's shown with things like FreePBX, which of course is built on top of Asterisk.
Yeah.
But I find that the whole acquisition quite interesting. What has been clear from talking to people who have been, and I haven't been, at Astricon this last week, is that the marriage has got off to a really good start. Everybody seems to be very keen on it. David Duffett will be going around and talking about Asterisk and Digium, a Sangoma company. And he doesn't say it in a sarcastic way. It's almost hey, this is good. So everybody seems to be within the Digium fold anyway. Seems to be quite happy, and certainly I think the developers, the Digium developers, are hoping that they may actually get more staff.
Yeah. Well, probably merging the skills they will get with quicker new products, quicker out of the line. and the software probably would be better integrated. It wouldn't be FreePBX sitting on top of Asterisk doing what Asterisk dictates, but there might be something that goes from the top to the bottom instead of just getting around with what Asterisk can offer. So that is a good thing, trademark. I hope there's not too many personality clashes, because I know there are a few difficult people in Sakoma.
Is it accurate to say that FreePBX sits on top of Asterisk?
Yes.
Yeah. It's practically a GUI where you change things in the GUI, and it writes a different dial plan for Asterisk.
But
it's dial plans.
But wasn't it a pretty much forked? I thought the code was completely rewritten. I misunderstood.
No, FreePBX is a GUI. It was Trixbox before, has been abandoned.
You know what? No, stop. It's the senior.
The GUI.
I was hearing FreeSwitch. Yes, FreePBX.
No,
of course, okay. FreePBX is written on. Yeah. No, sorry.
Yeah, it's just the GUI to facilitate the administration of the dial plan, of the Asterisk dial plan.
I remember that. There used to be Asterisk at home.
Yeah.
That one?
The Wardmundy one. PIF.
Yeah, what is?
Oh, did it?
PBX in a flash.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I was thinking in a box. No, it's not a box.
I think Asterisk at home, at the Aruba, was also something else.
There's also another distro minor that is called Ascotia. Doesn't have anything to do with Scott.
That was Michael Edema's. He took the monowall UI wrapper and wrapped it around Asterisk.
That doesn't still exist, does it?
Yeah.
Actually, it morphed. It morphed. It became the project got bought by a company and is now a German PBX manufacturer. They don't call it Ascosia anymore, but if you search for it, you get to this German company that's selling PBXs that are still based on Asterisk.
Michael's out of Spain. I guess is he still with Range Networks?
Yeah, I think so.
It's amazing, the people you meet along this journey. It's I have to reflect. It's fascinating. It'll be interesting to hear James's reflections next week. If we have nothing better to talk about, we can hear all about the dangerous demos and everything else that happened at Astricon. Pink drinks, all the rest. We're almost at the end here. So who else has any new stories before we go?
Well, I should like to point out one thing about Astricon. Kudos to David Duffett and company for streaming the keynotes. I watched them mostly.
This was funny. Carry on. I think I know what you're going to say, but carry on.
Next time they should find somebody over the age of 7 to run the camera.
That wasn't quite what I thought you were going to say. I thought you might have been going to repeat your tweet yesterday about resolutions.
Oh, well, the funny part was, that's true. Zoom.us was having a function yesterday that they called Zoomtopia. And Zoom is a video conferencing company. And they streamed their keynote. And they streamed quite a lot of the day, in fact. And because they were announcing some things that were pertinent to SIPDX, I was watching. Zoom was streaming 720p, whereas Astricon was streaming 1080p. And so the actual resolution of the video from Astricon was vastly superior to the much higher dollar production coming out of the West Coast from Zoom. However, the guy running the camera at Astricon clearly didn't know what focus was or white balance or anything like that. And the lighting was, it was funny because I could see people tweeting pictures, and the pictures taken from smartphones were such dramatically better pictures than the live stream. It was sad. It meant that, clearly TMC doesn't do video.
Probably
just like
HDR.
Just like Linux doesn't do.
And that was our good friend and sponsor, Simon Woodhead, who was doing one of the...
Yeah. And he was good. Simon was great.
Simon's fantastic.
He was.
And I watched the panel. I watched the closing panel yesterday as well, which was also nice.
Yeah, Simon's keynote will frighten you into never buying a new PC or anything else, or switching it on.
On that note, did anyone hear about Supermicro? What happened
yes.
with that?
Didn't we talk about
Yes.
that last week?
Last week we did.
You did. Okay, I wasn't here. Sorry. Yeah.
And there more things have come out on that, although the more things that have come out are not exactly supporting the original assertion, but they are kind of relative to it.
Like?
Well, there was a story that came out also in Bloomberg saying that an unnamed telecoms company, a security audit by a security firm found a Supermicro server at an unnamed telecoms company that had a hacked Ethernet jack that had some active component in the Ethernet jack that was interceding in the traffic in the server. And they found it because the machine appeared at a certain network level. It appeared as two machines on the network when there was only one Ethernet connection to it. And this was not what was described by the earlier article. And the security firm is under a non-disclosure agreement, so they can't say who the company was. But there's a machine in someone's hands that had a Supermicro motherboard that had some kind of something on it. Then
on the Ethernet jack in the motherboard or on the cabling outside, because you can hack a cable outside.
The Ethernet jack on the motherboard is what's being reported. But the trouble with this is because of the vehement denials, which seem credible in their own right, we've come to sort of until somebody comes up with a smoking gun, we kind of don't know who to trust at this point.
I'm not sure you'd ever know who to trust with these things anyway.
I think it's obvious. Trust no one.
Yeah.
That a citation from something.
Don't trust anyone.
Yeah.
Trust nobody.
Trust no one. I don't know. Somebody said that originally. I can't remember what. We may have reached the end.
Okay. Well, I have to bounce in a couple of minutes anyway, guys, which means I'm going to have to drop ZipDX. And who's on ZipDX? Only one or two.
Okay.
All right.
I suspect a number of our more normal audience are actually in the air, flying somewhere or traveling back from Orlando to wherever they have to go.
And they did not get hit by Michael, which was handy.
No,
Michael would have been a bad thing.
It all but missed them. It got a bit windy, I think.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Good thing. All right. Well, with that, we'll take you back to your regular scheduled programming. We do control the vertical. We control the horizontal. Don't try to adjust your set.